looking at the different types of themes that are out there, they break down into a group of about 6 different items out there. I originally thought it was, originally thought 5, but then really there is a 6th, and it's that last one, the Brochure Site. Blogs are easy to spot. They may not look like a blog because they may just have big visuals, but this is how they'll be built. Structurally, when they're looked at, they're article driven, if you will. They'll have an archive very prominent somewhere in the piece, which can always be hidden, but you'll know that this is a theme that's built to support blogging. What's important about that? Well, if blogging is the last thing that you're really concerned with on your company's site, move on and don't even touch a theme that does that. There will be plenty of others that are aesthetically and functionally better suited to your needs. On the other hand, some industry thought leaders want to have a magazine style site. Maybe it might not be their core site, but it might be the one that they want to use to talk to their industry about certain issues. Years ago, I worked with AMD, the chip maker, at a time that they were hot and heavy going back and forth with Intel. And one of their most important things that they needed to do was let people that were PC builders, gaming box builders, know we have chipsets that work for you. So they built an entire community around a magazine, around the AMD connection. And it was a separate site. So this is where a magazine type site may not be your core business site, but works very well for other efforts. And magazine sites will also support articles, but they'll treat them differently. It won't be so open to comments as much as the blog invites that. And it's built into a variety of layouts, much like a traditional magazine. If anything migrated from the traditional print on paper world in terms of design, it is the magazine layout of websites. There are a lot of portfolio sites out there. One of the biggest, largest growing areas is with photography, because there are so many people doing photography now professionally and semi-professionally. So there are a lot of sites that are built to them. They're not my favorite sites from a direct marketing standpoint, because the images are so big you have to either swipe down them if you're looking at them on mobile or on your tablet, or they put everything way down below the fold. I also have my own personal gripe beyond the traits that you see here. My gripe with portfolio sites is they tend to be very cute, very fine, and I used to, when I say fine, I mean in terms of the text that they use, the lightness of text. I used to have 20/20 vision until about 10 years ago. I thought everything was cool and dandy. I probably designed with a lot of light gray type on white until somebody creative director would smack my head years back. But I learned by 10 years ago, very much so. As a direct marketer, you want maximum readability. What I find with a lot of these theme sets is if you get one that you find they're fundamentally working for a project that you have in mind or a need that you have, you probably, as a direct marketer, especially in a marketer, you want to make them as readable and responsive as possible for a person. That means somebody needs to go in and make type readable, stop using paragraphs and paragraphs against reverse, especially against something like a laptop or a tablet screen, things like that. So that's just a note about watching out for portfolio sites, or anything that sort of lists itself as a portfolio theme, if you will. If you have need for e-commerce, e-commerce used to be a very weak area of WordPress, and it's become much stronger now. It's still growing into its own on that. And there are sites that are primarily built to support offerings of multiple SKUs. They're very good at integrating information, but they're not as good as much bigger sets. Remember we talked about Drupal and Joomla and their strengths. If you've got a lot of SKUs to work with, if you've got a lot of integration that needs to be made, think carefully about WordPress. But if you do, your theme may not necessarily be your answer. But if you're in that scenario where you're dealing with a lot of SKUs, a lot of inventory codes, a lot of product and imagery, you're probably also working with a fairly sophisticated development team, and they should be able to be well matched to not just working with your theme, but working with plugins, not too many, but one plugin that will drive your e-commerce structure. Something like WooCommerce, which tends to be very popular. The downside I have with something like WooCommerce is it's also a bit constricted in terms of how manipulatable it is. It also doesn't play well with all themes. There are some theme sets out there that are very good for stability. They don't happen to work very well with WooCommerce, which is a pity because they're both very strong suits on either side. But you'll get all the things that you want right out of the box in terms of shopping cart functions, shopping functions, things like that. But I will warn you, check them as in demo mode to see that the cart function and the user experience as a person moves from lead all the way through to shopper is what you want it to be. Because manipulating it away from that, if it's poorly done, just because somebody can program it to work like a shopping cart, doesn't mean it's the best shopping cart experience. I equate it to bad and good catalog building. In our audience, we have one of the great catalog creative directors that I've known, Carol. She's won many awards and for performance. And I would venture to guess that it's been very true. There are a lot of bad catalogs out there simply because the presentation of information is not there. And same is true in spades with websites. So make sure your shopping function on a e-commerce site is what you need it to be. It doesn't have extra steps and it doesn't miss anything in terms of your interaction. Some people need a membership site. Do people know what a membership site is? Very good. And that is primarily a site that has two sides of it. One is the public side and the other is going to be closed off and only available to people who have either paid for the privilege or have somehow passed a vetting process to obtain membership. And there are some sites that do that as well. If you have a site that is working for you and you need to inject or overlay membership to certain pages, you don't have to abandon what you've done in order to get to that area. There are things beyond a theme that can be done. And that's why I bring in this point. There are very few standalone themes that do this. Most of the time, people elect to buy a membership plugin or add-on that will either open or close and safeguard based on different user privileges, membership sites. So that's something to be aware of. And then probably most applicable to a lot of product offerings and core sites is the Brochure Site type of theme. Now you might think there should be tons of these and it should be the first one that pops up. Unfortunately, it doesn't. For some reason, there's still the fixation on blogs and portfolios when one goes through looking for the most popular themes on any theme repository. But this is probably the one the type of site that will give you a lot of what you want in terms of flexibility of your layouts within your website. It'll have multiple layouts. It'll also include the ability to add call to action items on a page. It'll actually have something called a call to action. And it'll also be marked by always having a front page. I say most have a front page. There are very few that don't have a front page. And what we mean by that is in WordPress, the old WordPress structure used to be to go right to the blog. You go to www.me.com, you go right to a blog. It's a blog post, the latest post, right? A brochure site has a separate front page that can be fed up from a page that you fed to that location from a page that you designed within the WordPress theme. Not to make it too complicated, but it frees you up from trying to figure out how do I get the blog off the main page. And that is a real headache when you're working with a blog formatted WordPress theme. Yes. Mm-hmm. It is a plugin, and there are two or three. One is called Member Plus, but it changes every month. There's new ones being brought up or improved, but you can find them within WordPress.org and download them. Plugins for membership, by the way, are not free. The way that they build their pricing models, and this is what a lot of plugin developers do now, is they'll have a free level, And then they'll have the premium level, which is either on an annual subscription basis where you have an access code that goes away, or you do a one-time purchase, yeah, at a higher level. But it also gives you more support. It also gives you more features that you didn't have before. And that will be secure, yeah. So we talked about WordPress sites, and how they come to be really comes down to the three basic areas. People either buy WordPress. Oh, I'm sorry, repeat questions? Okay. Do you need me to go back? Okay, thank you for the reminder. WordPress sites either come in three general flavors when we approach developing and deploying a site. Someone is either going to buy a stock WordPress theme and stay with it and not touch anything on it, or they're going to go a little bit further, and I like to recommend having a child theme built to customize a theme, and we'll talk a little bit about child theme in just a second. Or the theme is built completely from scratch, ground up. It's built on WordPress, but everything about it is completely custom. Child themes themselves, a child theme is an add-on theme. You start with your core theme, and instead of modifying its code, there's a way to program so that a second theme only has the changes that you want to differentiate, only the little character things. I don't want to use that font, I want to use a different font. I don't want any reverses in my sidebars, I want them to be all positive type. I want to feature a larger image on the front page, or a smaller image, or no image. It's all written in that second child theme, and it affects the first one. Now, why does that make sense? Because when WordPress updates, as it does the core software, themes update. And if you were not to create the child theme with your independent changes, if your main theme if you only made all those changes in your main theme and it gets updated, which many modern themes automatically update, all of your code goes away, and it has to be re-put back in.
So this is like in Dreamweaver, you wanted to make sure to develop something that was templated, because if you made a change in your logo on one of them, if that wasn't built on a base template, then you have to change the logo every single page, things like that.
So the question is, in programs like Dreamweaver, it saves you, because like in Dreamweaver, you're using it as a template, if you will, that doesn't get modified if other changes happen. Yes, it works in a slightly different fashion, but the same net effect is there. You save time by not destroying code that then has to be replicated again. Plugins are used. The more plugins, the more that you develop, the heavier your site needs are. What's going to happen is you're going to be bringing in plugins and other add-ons that are going to be making your site more full-bodied and do what you need it to. Plugins are going to be used for adding on features like we talked about, membership and other items like that. Maybe it's even the ability to host or connect up better with things like Yelp or Google. Forms for people to submit and interact with you. Or integration with things like Salesforce and other elements. There are plugins for that. And also, very most importantly to everyone, site security as well.